Hello, Noir Vortex here, and today I'm going to be talking about polymaths. So polymaths are, in the most simple terms, are people who exhibit a variety of skills in a broad range of areas. Now, and it's something I've been, kind of the opposite of experts. Instead of experts who specialise in one very specific area of expertise, or technical, or creative, or whatever in the humanities, polymaths have a broad brush and this broad set of skills in many different areas of expertise. So yeah, like I said, a polymath. I've been called a polymath by other people before, which I can understand, I guess, where they're coming from, but it's kind of, I'm a very modest person, so I guess it is a compliment, but I find it hard to know how to take that on board. I mean, I guess they're saying that because I'll talk about what I do, broadly speaking. So I've got pretty decent painting abilities now in terms of modern painting. I've had a few shows, I've been doing it for 10 years. I've had shows in London, I've had solo exhibitions. Never really sold that much really, but in terms of actually having my work out there and being active and doing it. I've been doing it for 10 years now. I've got my music production, which I've done, and again, not really commercially that successful, but I've released about 10 or 11, 12 albums now, I think, or releases of varying degrees of quality, like electronic IDM music. Poetry, I've written a lot and performed a lot of poetry over the northwest of England and London as well, so I went to a lot of open mic nights in London. Write short stories, I read quite extensive knowledge of Western philosophy mostly, and quite a decent knowledge of film, I think, as well. But that's kind of, those are kind of standard things really. But and then also, what else? Game design. I do programming, quite adept at programming, more or less, mostly front end web, so JavaScript, HTML, CSS. I know a bit of PHP, but not expert. I've done a bit of WordPress development as well, which I've been doing that for 5 or 6 years now, I suppose. Since uni, so studied computer science. But yeah, so I can understand where the comparison comes from, but I'm just going to talk a bit. I'm going to try and make this quite short, but one of the things I have found, if that is indeed true, is one of the really hard things is that people always want you, when you say what do you do to define yourself, oh, I'm an artist, or I'm a scientist, or I'm a programmer, or people want you to be an expert or a specialist in one area. So being a polymath is difficult because you're just like, I'm interested in so many different areas. I want to be a scientist, but I also want to mix that in with artistic elements, and also I want to write, and then I want to combine them all together. But explaining that to people takes too long, and most people just don't want to hear it. They just want to hear you say, oh yes, I'm a painter and this is my ultimate ideal. It's like, not really. Something I find, and even personally for myself, from my own psychology, I find a very hard time trying to focus sometimes on things. I mean, it's weird. Sometimes I get a real energy spurt going anyway, and then I'll just get loads of stuff done in 2 or 3 weeks, or a week, even days. Sometimes they just come out flowing words, or I can write half decent poems in 15 minutes when I'm on a full-on stream of consciousness. But yeah, it's very hard because people want you, if you're a polymath, and I've just been reading this article actually recently, I'll link to it below, which is saying that the world at present is not geared for polymaths, it's geared towards specialists. People always going on about their careers, so if you like marketing, that's all you do, that's all your focus is, and you don't branch out into other areas. If you're a web designer, that's all you do, you're a specialist in that. You don't branch out into other areas, etc, etc. So I don't know, Obviously there's no real answer to that big question, but I don't think we're ever going to turn into a polymath society, because I guess in general, like, being a polymath does require a certain malleable and kind of, you'd have to at least be smart, not genius level obviously, but you'd have to at least be able to take on board new ideas quite rapidly and be relatively comfortable with a kind of degree of abstraction, especially if, like me, you're interested in physics, cosmology, as well as the art stuff as well. I'm also very interested in how all these areas relate, and I don't understand why people kind of categorise them away into different areas. I mean, I can understand in the sense of they're actually different, that's obvious, but I mean, if we take an obvious example like art and physics, which might seem like completely incompatible, because one is a very system-based mathematics system and then one is a visual system. But that's where I think they do relate, is that conceptually art visuals can help with physics concepts, and vice versa, mathematics informs art. Sacred geometries and Pythagoras or golden spiral, etc. On an even deeper, more fundamental level, art is mathematics. You say that to most artists, they just go, because a lot of them aren't into maths. Which is fair enough, there's nothing wrong with that, but I'm just saying, this is the kind of thing, I mean, you know, same would go with some scientists as well. If you start talking about art and painting or whatever, they just start yawning as well, because they don't comprehend it, it's not that they don't comprehend it, obviously they'll understand it, but they just, everyone's too closed off. It's very frustrating if you've got a mind like mine, which is just interested in all the areas, and how we can just soaking up lots of knowledge and finding out more about everything. Then that natural curiosity can be somewhat definitely kind of crushed out, especially through the education system as well. I think the education system, which maybe can't make sense what they do, because it makes things easier for them to organise, but they kind of just try to squeeze you into a specialisation. So for example, through secondary school I got squeezed into the IT area of computing because I showed some degree of talent at it, so I was squeezed under the GMBQ and went on to do a BTEC college in IT. But yeah, while I was doing the IT work, even at college, I was still doing lots of artwork at home and finding out more about art and reading and consuming a lot. Reading the occasional physics book and popular science book. But yeah, I think I'll leave it there because I want to speak for 10 minutes. If you've got kind of polymath-like abilities, or if you have any thoughts about what I've said, very interested in hearing your thoughts. I've kind of just done this as a stream of consciousness. I've not really gone into it with a plan. I'm very much one against the common YouTube editing principle of cut like every bit, tiny little bit of silence in between videos. I find it very superficial and tiresome, so I've not done that. I don't know why I'm going into that now. That's why it's probably a bit long, but I just don't really like having to cut, you know, in between. I just think it's very superficial. But anyway, that's my video about polymaths and why I might be one, I suppose. So cheers.